Volubilis is an ancient city located in Morocco, founded circa the 3rd century BCE. It was originally the capital of Mauritania, but changed ownership many times in its history, with each culture leaving a different mark on the city. Volubilis is located at the foot of Jebel Zaroun in northeastern Morocco, somewhat close to the Mediterranean Sea and Atlantic Ocean. This city is smaller than Pompeii, covering only 42 hectares, or roughly 100 acres of land. Volubilis is made of two general areas, a flatter but slightly sloping area in the northeastern part of the city, and a hilly sloped area. The flatter area was home to monuments, arches, and waterworks. During the 3rd century BCE, the city was occupied by Berbers, part of the Mauritanian Empire. It was later briefly also the capital of Idris I, founder of the Idrisid dynasty. Although the creation date of the city is uncertain, there are at least about 20,000 people living there as of 0 CE. Rome annexed the kingdom around 40 CE, 20 years after the last local king's death. After Roman annexation, Volubilis became the seat of the Roman procurators and financial overseers. During the 2nd century CE, Volubilis gained its Roman public buildings such as a basilica, temple, and triumphal arch. Volubilis was a large point of commerce and home to many successful and wealthy citizens. The city is located in fertile and agricultural land, which allowed for its success in olive oil, grains, and grape production. Volubilis also exported wild animals to be used in Roman zoos, adding to the success and wealth of the citizens. Because of this wealth, there were many lovely private homes with intricate mosaic floors. However, the level of commerce declined after another city was created nearby. In 285 CE, Volubilis was taken back by local citizens and was not retaken by Rome because of its remoteness and indefensibility. For reference, Volubilis was the farthest Roman province to the southwest, quite a trek from Rome. In the next 700 years, the city switched from a Christian to Muslim city, only to be abandoned during the 11th century. Most of the city remains intact, but many of the monuments toppled in a 1755 earthquake.
The Decumanus Maximus is the main axis that runs through the city, allowing for quick transportation. Lining the sides of the Decumanus Maximus are the wealthy houses and private residences. Public buildings can be found adjacent to this main road, allowing for quick communication between citizens and businessmen. Entering through the Tingis Gate, one would gain a unique view of the Arch of Caracalla, a main point of focus in the city and one of Volubilis's most defining features. In the area surrounding the Arch of Caracalla, the North Baths could be found as well as the city's fountain, where the aqueduct ultimately ended.
Venturing further south, the Baths of Gallienus, the Forum, the Basilica, and the Capitoline Temple are located, as well as other private houses and buildings dedicated to olive oil production. There exists a hierarchy of buildings not only from the colonnaded Decumanus Maximus, but also from the Triumphal Arch, where most important buildings would be situated near these features of the city. The colonnaded main axis is a feature in many North African Roman cities, as there was space for large boulevards and inexpensive locally sourced stone. The large boulevard connecting the Tingis Gate through the Triumphal Arch with public buildings flanking this main axis creates a city armature as defined by MacDonald.
The most striking and monumental public structure in the ruins of Volubilis is the Arch of Caracalla, built in 217 under the auspices of Senator Marcus Aurelius Sebastinus. The arch, named for Emperor Caracalla after his extension of Roman citizenship to the people of North Africa, dwarfs the smaller Tingis Gate that also resides on the Decumanus Maximus. The French found and restored the Arch of Caracalla in 1930 to 1934, but the accuracy of its reconstruction is still in question. It was built of local stone and highly decorated in antiquity with statues and engravings of nymphs and gods, most prominently with medallions of Bacchus and the Four Seasons. The main temple in the city of Volubilis was the Capitoline Temple. This temple was dedicated to the three chief divinities in Roman culture of Minerva, Juno, and Jupiter. The Capitoline Temple is situated behind the basilica and features an arcaded courtyard with an altar that flowed into a 13-step staircase that leads up to the columned temple. In the courtyard around the altar, assemblies were held for multiple purposes, common ones being to beseech help from the gods or give thanks after a public success such as victory in war. Inside the temple, there were 4 smaller shrines, one of them being dedicated to Venus. There are also 5 minor temples found in the city, including the Temple of Saturn.
In this image, we see what remains of Volubilis' basilica. Only part of the basilica still stands, but still shows some of the elements of Roman architecture. For example, there were arches along the length of the building with decorative columns attached at each pillar. Here is a plan of what the basilica might have looked like in antiquity. As was common, there is a large central space with 2 side aisles, separated by columns defining the larger space. In this last depiction of the basilica, we see how the basilica might have stood in antiquity. It would have been multi-storied, adding to its prominence. In addition, there are gaps between the central roof and the roof above the aisles, where there would have been windows to allow light into the main space. This was called the clerestory. While there have been many influences in Volubilis, the public buildings such as the basilica show strong references to Roman culture and architecture.
The city of Volubilis utilized an aqueduct to obtain water for the population. The aqueduct flowed from a nearby spring outside of the city walls, and once the water gained entry to the city limits, a network of channels delivered the water to bathhouses, fountains, and residences throughout the city. This aqueduct was constructed between 60 and 80 CE during the Roman occupation, and was reconstructed on multiple occasions as time progressed. When inside the city walls, the aqueduct ran under the Decumanus Secundus, parallel to the Decumanus Maximus, and its flow ended in a fountain in the city center, close to the Arch of Caracalla. The infrastructure of Volubilis also featured a network of drains to carry sewage and waste away to a nearby river. There were a number of private baths within various houses, but within the small city there were also 2 major public bath complexes. The North Bath served, as many larger bathhouses tended to, as a meeting place as well as a 1,500 square meter bath complex, larger but less ornate than the smaller 900 square meter Baths of Gallienus, which featured multicolored marble decor.
Due to the low number of excavated public buildings, much of the architecture and culture in Volubilis has been interpreted from the local domestic buildings. In examining private residences in any archaeological site, it is important to acknowledge that individual homes do not strictly define the style of a town as a whole, and therefore it is important to decide which aspects may be insights to a culture that is widely unknown, with influences from the Punics, the Greeks, and the Romans. On average, Romano-African houses in Volubilis were around 1,100 square meters in the 26 excavated sites before 1995, with smaller entry halls which led into larger atria or peristyles, large courtyards, and occasionally a smaller secondary courtyard. This is a feature distinct to Volubilis and would have affected social interaction, perception of the house, and communication between the home and the street outside. The size of these buildings may be skewed, especially as architects tend to uncover the larger, more ornate residences early, and much of the city is still unexcavated. Another thing distinct to Volubilis which affects communication is the presence of a secondary door on the side of the house, a separation from the North African norm of a single door out onto the street. These Romano-African houses typically arrange themselves in one of 3 ways, in regards to how the courtyard, main room, and entryway were arranged, and these are axial, directly across, bayonet on opposite walls but unaligned, and orthogonal on perpendicular walls. There are also a few instances of a U-shaped arrangement where the courtyard and entryway were on the same wall. However, about half of the total houses excavated in Volubilis showed a bayonet-style arrangement, which is a departure from the Romano-African style and shows more of a Greek influence. An axial arrangement is very typical of a North African city, but are much less common than other arrangements in Volubilis. Many houses also held shops in the front or the back, in alignment with Roman tradition. A total of 121 shops had been identified by 1995. There are certain residences that held great prominence in this area, such as the House of the Orpheus, named for the mosaic found inside that depicts Orpheus surrounded by animals. Another important residence is the House of the Voyage of the Venus, which had well over 20 individual rooms and mosaics within 8 of these rooms and 7 of the corridors. One of the mosaics in this house echoed the theme of the city's triumphal arch, depicting Bacchus and the 4 seasons. This house also housed its own private bath complex, and at 1,200 square meters, it was larger than the Baths of Gallienus.
Over its 1,500-year history, the city of Volubilis collected cultural influences from Moorish, Punic, and Roman building styles before its final abandonment. The particular wealth of Volubilis before its annexation, mostly due to its position as an olive oil production center, meant that pre-Roman styles were not fully supplanted. Nonetheless, Roman architectural monumentality and social order remains preserved, and its excavation and reconstruction are an excellent exercise in understanding wealthy Roman provincial urbanism.
Wait. There's no theater?